Lovely. Well, welcome everyone. My name's Hannah Emmerich. I'm part of the team at the diocese who have been running these eco church forums along with Barbara Bryant and David Long. And we're really delighted today to welcome Polly Eaton from A Rocha UK, who's here to talk to us a little bit about the new survey, which I hope you'll have had a chance to look at and engage with a bit. It's quite different from what went before, which obviously, you know, it has some new challenges and new opportunities for us as well. So I hope we'll have some really fruitful conversation about that. Just a few bits of housekeeping. The session is being recorded so that people can listen back afterwards. So if that's a worry at all, then you might want to put things in the chat, or yeah, anyway, you can talk to us afterwards. And also, yeah, please keep yourself muted when you're not talking, just because it's a fairly large group. So I will open in prayer, and then I'm going to hand over to Polly. Dear Lord, we thank you for the work of A Rocha UK and their prophetic voice over so many years, calling churches to a deeper engagement with your creation and the issues surrounding it. And we pray that this session tonight will be one where we can really see the opportunities where we are in the new survey, and that as more churches engage with this and more churches sign up with A Rocha, that we will really see things begin to shift and change. And we pray for a unity of purpose in our churches at this time of real division, that this will be a topic that can unite us and not divide us. In your name, amen. Polly.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's really, really lovely to be with you. Share my screen, and I have a few slides to go alongside what I'm saying, and I will go hopefully live onto the website as well to do a little bit of a tour of what's on there for those of you. It might be helpful if you're not familiar, or if you've been familiar in the past, and just to see what's there. So I'm part of the Eco Church team with A Rocha UK, and so I'm been very involved in part of the overview or the update of the Eco Church survey, but also very involved in visiting churches, and particularly churches who are going for gold. So it's always lovely to talk to people who are involved at the grassroots level. So I just want to start with a story. Hopefully you can see a map in front of you. It's indicated.
No, we can't
see my
yet.
Screen?
No.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Aha. Is that seeing something now?
No.
Mysterious.
It is mysterious. It worked just now.
It did, and we just had a dry run.
That's always the way.
That's not come up?
No.
Oh, very strange.
You have got the share button, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got the share button.
Showing
I'm
up.
clicking on a tab. That's there. How strange. Is that not there?
No.
Okay.
Could you send it to Barbara and Barbara share it?
Yeah. That's doing it. If you want to.
It's a rather. Let me just try once
large
more. That is...
file.
Yeah. Very lovely.
Yeah, it is. Window, entire screen. Let me try once more. It sort of says it's sharing from my. Is that working?
No.
Sorry. I'm not quite sure. No. Oh. Okay.
There's nothing I can do from my end unless
It's
you can send
very
me
strange because it says on the tab it's sharing. Nothing there. Right. Sorry. Okay.
mean, the only thing is
difference
if you
off your video. I don't know whether that makes any difference at all.
Right, I will try that. Thank you. Sorry, guys.
No, it's not your fault. It's the joys of doing stuff live on Teams.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be responding. I'm just trying to turn my own camera off so that, you know, just to make sure that it's not really responding with that entire screen.
If it's your Teams that's being slow to respond, it might be that the sharing starts at some point, and you know, I don't know.
Okay. Right. What I might do is just do some explaining anyway. I'm very sorry not to have some visuals as well to go through that. Maybe when we have a little break, and I'll see if I can have another go at doing that with the website in particular. I did want to tell if you could visualize a map. I live in Hertfordshire, and a couple of months ago I was asked to or went to meet some friends in the Wye Valley to go for a walk. We were meeting in Herefordshire. As the crow flies, that's about 100 miles due east of where I live. My journey was not straightforward. I was going by train, and actually the only way to get there by train was either to travel south to London and then travel west, or I had to go north a long way up to Crewe and then south down to Hereford. So this journey was fairly convoluted, whatever route I choose. But basically I knew where I was going. So once I'd got on the right train, even though it felt geographically wrong, I knew where my destination was. And I knew I was heading in the right direction. And really, I just want to remind us all that we're all doing Eco Church, whether we're at the beginning, on our way, or feeling like we sort of have progressed with it for many, many years. Whatever level of church, whatever level of the survey we're at, and we find ourselves at, whether we're just registering or bronze, silver, or going for gold, the survey is the same. The destination is the same. We all have the same underpinning belief about what we are doing. And that is that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it and all who live in it. So I think it's really helpful to think of the Eco Church survey as a tool. It's a tool for planning action, and it's your map, if you like. So we do all take slightly different routes, and we all can start from slightly different points, but we do hopefully know where we're heading. I'm just going to take a few minutes to outline some of the overview of the survey and some of the sort of the nuances and the emphasis that has changed as the survey has updated. Hopefully I'll be able to go live onto the platform and show you some of those things. If not, we'll do a description and just some suggestions about making your plan as well. And I know there's plenty of time for discussion, and that's so valuable because you are the people who have experience and learning from one another, but also, of course, coming here with questions and thinking, how can we find a solution, or what's an idea of how we might tackle a challenge. So as most of you probably know, Eco Church is open to all denominations, and it is a learning community. It is about finding what works in somewhere else, or what someone might have tried, or thinking, oh, we've done this and it's really worked. We've found a very valuable way of in our worship and sharing that. So as a community, learning from one another. And it's progressed through the awards. Since Eco Church started in 2016, we now have over 8,000 churches registered with us, and 4,500 of those have an award of a bronze, silver or gold. And we've recently awarded our 112th gold Eco Church. So you're part of a big community. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but rest assured you are, and an important members of that. And in the Diocese of Norwich, there are nearly 200 churches that are registered, and already half of them have a bronze or silver award. So these are your people. But I just want to highlight that there are double that number of eco-churches with the other denominations. They are also part of your community. So if you've got a Methodist church down the road or a Baptist church, they're also on the same journey as you, and they might also be means of support and shared learning. So don't forget about them. There is a map on the Eco-Church website where you can look and search those other churches as well. So don't forget them. So what's the Eco-Church survey about? And I've got a few key phrases I'm just going to go through. So the first ones of these is about the survey being a diverse and serving an increasingly diverse church base. So one of the reasons why the church survey was updated was to really try and accommodate the many different ways a church can be today. We have Quakers, we have cathedrals, we have churches without buildings, we have churches with medieval buildings and churches with innovative modern buildings. So the survey is designed to be to accommodate all of those, and that means that in the buildings and energy category we have a pathway, 3 pathways for churches to choose the one that best fits them. For many churches that's obvious. If you're a church that has a Sunday service and perhaps meets regularly in the week, you're going to choose pathway 1. It's a busy or it's an active church. But if you have a church that maybe only meets once a week, once a month, and maybe less than that, you might be looking at pathway 2. So that's a less used church. It's maybe even a church without its own water supply or electricity supply. So is a less used church. And then pathway 3 is for a church without a building. If you meet in a rented space or if you meet outdoors, you would choose pathway 3. So we want to, with the survey, recognise these differences. We also have pathways in the land and nature category, where you have your own land or where you have very little land or no land at all. That's pathway 2. And where you have some land, that would be pathway 1 in the land and nature category. So the second key area of the church update, which happened over the course of the end of 24, fully went live in 25, and we closed the old version of the survey at the end of January. So it's all just, what are we, 8-9 months ago now. But the reason we updated the survey was to really recognise the twin crisis of the climate and nature crisis that we are currently in. It really is to try and reflect and appreciate that we need to address the fundamental issue of injustice, of climate change, and the biodiversity loss that we are facing globally. It's to recognise that we are created beings. We're part of God's creation, sharing a common home. And so the survey is more robust in order to respond to that. There's also a depth to the survey. There's a prompting impactful actions from people. So the Eco-Church survey goes into some detail as well about practice and actions, and it aligns closely with the Church of England's own net zero route map. So you'll see some very similar messaging in the questions of the buildings and nature category, buildings and energy category, as mirrored in the Church of England's net zero plan and some of their documentation. One of the things we emphasise in the new survey is about ownership. The Eco-Church survey is a tool for churches, and we encourage you to own it. It is a self-evaluation tool. So sometimes there are questions and you think, I don't think this quite fits us. We can't do this where we are, or this doesn't make sense. So just read the spirit of the question and think, what's the best? What does this mean to us? And you can use the notes in the part of the Eco-Church survey just to sort of explain how you've answered that question, because sometimes we're trying to give questions to churches, as I've said, of all shapes and sizes. So it's about, what does this mean for you? So do think about it with honesty and with integrity, but about what's the best fit answer for your church at this moment. Every church is different. We've got different congregation sizes, demographics, finances, buildings. So it is about trying to apply it to your setting. And then the last two words that I'm really going to emphasize, which kind of don't come across in the Eco Church website or even the survey, but they're the key words when we look at assessing a gold church. And those two words about having Eco Church embedded in your church and having Eco Church sustained. They're the two sort of check words when we go to visit a church, because we want Eco Church to be long lasting in your churches. It's not about the objective of reaching the goal of an award. It's about, are there systems in place to have Eco Church really sustained, whether the marvelous eco warrior leaves that church or not, decides to move to a different part of the country, that Eco Church is really going to be sustained within your worshipping community, because it's always on the agenda, because it's always part of worship, because there's always an eco tip in the newsletter, whether that person is there or not. So it's that sort of embedded nature that we really seek within the Eco Church survey, and we ask for documentation when churches go for gold to try and evaluate that. But we want sustainable churches, and we want sustainable you, and we don't want to forget that. We know that it takes a lot of energy and ongoing motivation to do this. So I think that's another thing to think about when you're implementing Eco Church and encouraging your leaders or your congregation to be doing that. So do think about how you're going to work together as a church, but also in the wider community, how you're going to collaborate with others, how you're going to learn and support one another. So meetings like this are really valuable for that process. I don't have the slides that I can show you right now, but one of the slides on this particular moment is a slide from a church in Liverpool. Actually, the church is called St Michael's in the City, and it's a urban church right in the middle of Liverpool city centre, surrounded by housing. The church congregation is tiny. They have a handful of people, but they have church land, and they've actually given that land to another community, to Faiths for Change, to be managing that land for them. And those people have now collaborated with the local horticulture college, and they have level 1 and 2 horticulture training on their church land. That church land is used every single day. They are growing food for the community that goes into the food bank. They are providing a space for many different groups of people, young people who've been excluded from school. They've got older people who find a space to grow what they want. That church isn't doing it all themselves, but they are collaborating. They're using the resource that they have to share and impact the wider community. So it's a really lovely thing to be thinking about. And even in a rural setting, that might be wildlife trusts, it might be heritage groups. So sort of just as a kind of thinking about sustainable church, but sustainable you as well. Those networks are really valuable. I've got one or two more things about sort of the 5 categories and things, but I wonder if it's worth just pausing there for a moment. I might have one more try with my technology to have a look at the screen sharing, but if I just pause there for a moment to see if there's maybe either some questions, but I have got some other things that could be shared. Any particular questions on those broad brush areas?
I think I've muted everybody as they've come in, so you feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question you'd like to ask Polly now. We are going to probably just split into a couple of breakout rooms shortly to talk about a couple of questions. But if you've got anything you'd like to ask Polly now that's come up particularly, or that you've got a burning question you came with tonight, please unmute yourself and raise your hand, and I'll do my best to see you all.
No.
You've stunned them all, Polly.
I have, sorry. I thought I'd have one more go at seeing if I can share this.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Yeah, just call out. Is that?
Hello.
Hello, Richard.
Yes. Hi.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for that. In preparation for this meeting, we looked through the questionnaire at lunchtime, and we're really struck by the scale of it. It is a fantastic resource, and it mentions every possible thing you could do. which is great. I'm one of the eco chaplains for Norwich, and in my sort of South Norfolk patch, there's lots of very small churches. And my concern is that they're overwhelmed. They look at this, and there's 125 questions, and they're expected to do 75 different things. And they're just, well, you know, can you suggest a gentle starting point?
Sure. Yes, I think it's a really helpful question, because I think in its entirety it can feel overwhelming. And I generally suggest to churches that they, first of all, have a go, have a look, just to look through the questions. And that can either be online on the survey. Hopefully most people here have registered, and that means that you can go onto the Eco Church platform and you can have a look at it there. There's a series of boxes. You have to open each question and then come out of it. But it might be easier for many churches, particularly if you're not feeling, you know, if you're wanting to do it in a group setting, is to do it by looking at the paper version of it. And we've got different versions of downloading the category questions, and that might feel a little less daunting. Even to break it down into categories and say, right, this month, we're just going to have a look at all the questions in the community and global section, and just have a go and just get a sort of feel for that, and a feel for where a church is, because quite often a church can complete the survey as a one-off and see, oh, look, we're actually already at bronze in a couple of these categories, or we're not far off bronze or silver in a category. And I think those are the areas sometimes to start with, recognizing where you are already and where you're doing well. Don't go to the ones that you're immediately thinking, well, this is much, you know, this is a bigger stretch, or we haven't even made an impact on this lifestyle question. Start with the areas that you're doing well. Let the congregation know about them. We're doing Eco Church. Part of that is our worship and teaching. So we're having this particular service today to be thanking God for his creation and be thanking God for harvest. So you may have a service that's emphasizing that. And then gradually you'll start to think, well, what are the next areas that we might start to be sort of growing into? And I would also encourage a church not to keep going back to the survey. Have a look at it, set it aside, get on with what you're doing, get on with your plan of thinking, how do we integrate creation care into the life of our worshipping community, and then revisit 6 months later or a year later and see, what are we doing now? How have we progressed on? Because I don't think the surveys should be constraining a church. It is a guide, it is a measure of what you're doing, and it can be a prompt for action, but shouldn't be restricting you, and it shouldn't be a tick box, or we've done A, B, C. Okay, let's move on. You need to think of it in your context. I hope a few of those things might help.
That's helpful, thank you.
Okay.
And could I just add something?
Yeah.
When I went to visit a church just over the border in Mendham. That's a gold church, just literally in our next door neighbours in Eds and Ips, which was your typical little rural church, only under 25 people, mostly over the age of 75, and they're a gold church. So I was curious. And the other thing that struck me, I mean, I'm going to share the story in other ways at other times. One, it was exactly what you've just said. They took different bits, and it took 10 years. This was not something that was a quick journey, you know, to get to gold. Neither should it be. From, as you say, you know, we want it to be, it needs to have a legacy, and then I guess you're looking at what comes next, but it needs to be embedded and it needs to be sustainable beyond the people who are in that church now. But I think what struck me was that idea of, they did little bits, they didn't see it as a tick box or a constraining thing. They saw it as a journey that they were on, and they're still on. They go on being on it, even though they are a gold church. They are still very much on the journey and looking to see how they can influence the other churches in the benefice who are also on that journey. So I think it is very much that idea of, it cannot all depend on one person, and it has to be handed on as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Daphne, I think you have your...
Yes.
Yeah.
The question I was going to ask a bit later on, I'm not sure it quite ties in enough with what Polly was starting off with, except it does certainly with embedded and sustainable. That we have struggled with the lifestyle section of the survey. We have struggled with the whole business of really getting our congregation to opt into the whole business. Despite real faithful efforts in preaching and praying, we're not making a very good progress on that. And last year we asked people to think about making a personal eco pledge at harvest, but a few months on, people, if you said to them we might review those, they said eco pledges what, as if they had forgotten about it completely. And to go back to the business of starting off, Richard's point with the churches near him, we were certainly very encouraged when we started off by realizing that we were well on the way to bronze. I think that's true for a lot of people, isn't it? It's a good place to have a bit of encouragement.
It really is, and an opportunity to celebrate that as well, and that helps to raise awareness of what's going on, because a lot of things about EcoChurch can be quite hidden. You can't see your energy provider, you can't see necessarily some of the sort of mechanical or the pipes and wires, as someone's called it once, parts of the church. So saying we've got bronze and this is why and what we've done is a great opportunity. So, but just on the lifestyle one of the I've just put in the chat actually a link to a document which I'm going to make reference to a couple of times, but it says getting started with EcoChurch, but I think it's useful to visit at any time. But one of the points on there, in fact it's the first one, says create spaces to grow. As passionate people about the environment, you've already grown an enormous amount with your connection and understanding of God as a creator, of our responsibility, of climate justice. You've had a journey, and I think it's helpful to think as people involved in this or as leaders, what are the spaces to grow in my worshipping community? Is that through a Lent study group? Is it through perhaps a sermon series? Is it through just an information session, a drop in and find out more? Because those opportunities, or maybe sharing your story, sharing what it was that prompted you to go, aha, this is what I need to do to care for God's earth. This is the Bible verse that spoke to me, or when I saw this tree or this butterfly, whatever it is, you will have moments, and sharing those with your congregation can really help them to grow as well. Because the data or the headlines are not going to be necessarily those things that are going to prompt people into their action, but your story could be that prompt. So do use that and help your congregation to grow in that way. One of the other, in fact, I just had an email today from someone who says we're going to ask everyone to share their eco tip. What's their recommendation for the congregation? So they come from the congregation. They're not things that have been brought in. And it might be someone says, oh, did you know that the health shop does refills of dishwasher rinse aid? Oh, no, I didn't know that. So you're sharing your local knowledge within your community. So those sort of connections may be other ways to start engaging in that lifestyle area. So people are doing things. People are doing things. Thanks. Yeah, okay. So I'm messing up the timings a bit, Hannah. So
no, that's fine. No,
I mean, I maybe it's valuable to have some time talking, but this getting started document is quite a useful sort of prompt and resource, which I can share links to things afterwards. But
right,
yeah.
Okay, so that's in the chat. Hopefully everybody can see in the chat. There's a link there, but you can also find it obviously on the EcoChurch website too. So I'm thinking there's 17 of us. Well, there's 18 actually, because Richard and Hilary are sharing a screen. So there's 18 of us. I'm just thinking we could probably split into 3 breakout rooms. I'm hoping people can see what I put in the chat just above Polly's question there. This idea about picking one or two areas or issues you'd like to discuss in your groups. So we're looking for you to each, very quickly, so everybody has a chance to speak, each give one example of a successful action you've taken using the new survey, if you've had a go at it yet, or even on the old one if you haven't. And can you please share one area or action that you're particularly struggling with? Well, we've already had a couple of suggestions, but if there's anything else that you can think of. So one successful action that you have taken, something that you've found has worked well, and then one that you've struggled with, and ways that you've already tried to address that, like the example Daphne just gave. So I am a complete novice at trying to do breakout rooms on Teams, so I'm hoping I'm not going to lose you. Oh gosh, and Maggie's just gone out and hopefully is coming back in again. So I'm just going to randomly assign you to breakout rooms, 3 of them, I think. Could you very quickly just somebody in each room, if it's one of us leaders who are here, then it has to be one of us. But if you don't have either Hannah or Polly or myself or David in one of your rooms, can you please choose somebody that will just summarise briefly at the end when we come back together those 2 questions? That would be great. So I'm going to do 3 breakout rooms and I'm going to create them now. So hopefully any minute now, it says creating, you'll all be put into rooms. Okay, open rooms. It says it's opening them. We are moving people to their assigned rooms. I've got people disappearing off my screen and reappearing. Okay. Oh, well, this is great. So David, me and Hannah have all ended up in the same room. Wonderful. Oh, okay. Right. That's just great. So if everybody can unmute themselves, and we'll have a nice cozy chat here. Okay. This is going so well. And then I've also got to work out how to get everybody back as well. But there we go. Polly's very helpfully put the 2 things in the chat as well. So I'm doing far too much talking. So Susanna.
Hello.
Hello.
It's quite reassuring that somebody else who's really sort of at the top of their tree has technological problems sometimes. Quite reassuring. What do you want me to say, Barbara? I'm not very good one to pick on, but I will just say that my name is Susanna Gunner and I am a member of the Environmental Working Group, and I'm here to listen and to learn, because I haven't had no experience of eco-church at the grassroots at all. But in fact, from January, I'm going to be a house for duty priest in a parish where I can work very hard with it. So I'm picking up all sorts of tips. But in my present role, I'm very peripatetic at the moment, and I do try to preach about or include climate, biodiversity loss, a warming climate, the injustices of climate change, etc., in sermons and in prayers, and in the way I put liturgy together.
Great, thank you. Okay, because we're a slightly odd group in that we've got myself as the DEO, and I don't want to talk at all. If just Jan and either Hilary or Richard, Hannah, Peter and Susan, you could just briefly say, a bit like Susanna did, where you are, and then just choose one of the things to say, either something you struggled with the survey, or something you feel you've really triumphed with. That would be helpful.
Make a start. well, triumph is a big word, isn't it? I'm not sure we go that far. In Newton Flotman, which is a parish just south of Norwich, as you may well know, when we started on our sort of secondary climate journey 2 or 3 years back, we set up a climate care group, which has a WhatsApp group and a Facebook page. It sounds very grand, but it's all quite small. We hoped it would expand rapidly, and really not sure that it has. What has been a success is our relationship with our MP. He's visited us. We are in regular communication. We've just written to him again today on various topics related to the lobby group. He's a very nice man, so it's easy. But yeah, we think that's great and an important thing to be doing. What do we struggle with? So many things we struggle with. Go on. Do you want to say something? No. Can I be controversial?
Yeah.
So much of making progress on it depends on the clergy, and we have lovely clergy, and you know, I love them to bits, but they're very busy, and climate is not their main thing, and it always feels like a struggle pushing climate things forward, especially when it comes to teaching and the like. There's not resistance to it, but you know, our small groups are not doing climate care. I guess that's down to group leaders, not to clergy. But yeah, making the worship and teaching really real for us locally, I think is hard going. I was delighted to see that the clergy teaching session this year was all on the environment, wasn't it? So that's a real positive.
Yes, in July, a very good session with Bishop Graham for the clergy. So it's a good time to refer back to that in the light of Bishop Graham's recent teaching morning on climate justice.
Yes.
Could we consider our small groups doing a study from the new year or something?
Yes.
Because Hannah, that's how you guys got going in St Stephen's, wasn't it? It was doing the Lent book, the Archbishop's Lent book.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Yeah, it was. I think that was very much what sparked the eco group in the first place. So if you do a regular Lent course, I think if you could manage to make something environmental, a theme of that, then that's a really good way to kind of get people talking about it over an extended period, and then you kind of find out who might then take it forward.
Yeah.
I think one of the big wins early on at St Stephen's was them changing all the church banking, and that's a big thing and a one-off thing, but felt like quite a big, a big win.
Yes.
And as I went through the survey, it's really interesting, this idea of the kind of the sustainability, because actually that is an issue we've had at St Stephen's. It's city centre church, people move in and out, and we lost quite a few people from the eco group, and then I have a slightly complicated setup where I'm actually not there on Sunday, and it was really difficult for me to kind of run it effectively. And as a result, some things that we kind of got off to a good start on, I think, haven't become as embedded as you would like. It is quite hard without someone pushing it along all the time. And we tried various approaches to that, like having a kind of rolling eco tip thing where, like, this month we would have just a little slide about some aspect of lifestyle. So it would be like, right, in January we will put up, something about, like, a simple slide about, I don't know, travel or whatever it was, and then we might do another one about banking or about food choices, and we try and have those rolling because the church has a screen, and I think that was helpful in a way. I'm quite sort of intrigued looking through the survey. There's so many ideas, which is great, but it feels like some of them you could kind of hone in on that and almost make that a really big part of what you're doing. I've just got the lifestyle one, up in front of me, and one of the things they say is lending or borrowing initiatives, like a library of things. I mean, I think that would be an amazing thing for a church to run, sort of in terms of like community building and community outreach and all sorts of, there would be all sorts of goods from something like that, but it would be a major project for the church to run. And it might be that if they then did the application to the survey, you know, to A Rocha, actually although that's just like one line in the survey, it's a big part of their application, because it's a significant part of their engagement. So I suppose it's trying to see all the ticks as as opportunities rather than demands, in a way. I do, just looking through the new survey, I definitely think it's got a huge amount more sort of ideas than the last survey. It gives you much more to work with in a way, but yeah, there can be a sense of overwhelm as well.
And I think that's where sometimes Polly was trying very much to say that yes, there's more depth, and yes, there's more opportunity, but it is also then trying to recognise the diversity of the different churches that are involved. You know, not just, I mean, we have a huge diversity in the Anglican Church, but you know, by the time you add in all the other denominations as well. And so I think that's where they've still got the note sections, I've noticed. So I guess that's where you explain, you know, actually we chose this part. For example, if you went down the library of things idea, lending library of stuff, you could say we chose to major on this, therefore we made a decision, because we're only a small whatever, or we had finite resources, not to do this as a result, and this has become, you know, but we're sharing it with other churches as a result, or whatever, you know. Yeah. That would be where I guess you get to give a more narrative to it. Yeah. Jan, what about you? Where are you? And
well, I'm we're Gage Road Chapel in Sproston in Norwich. And we were very new to this. We wouldn't have seen the previous survey, only the one which we've had printed off by our pastor.
That's good.
And so we've got nothing to compare. But we're kind of trying to get our head around the buildings and project. And we, at the present, we're looking to improve our carbon footprint, and 3 things we're looking at, and that's to change some of our wooden framed single glazed windows in the main areas to double glazed. We have 100 millimeters of insulation in our roof space, and we propose to lay an additional 300 mils to it. And also we're looking into to install solar panels onto our chapel roof, because we're just a single story, so we haven't got like a high rise, you know, roof. So that's the good thing in what we're going for. We're getting quotes for all these things, but because we are self-funding, we're going to struggle with quite a lot of how we can go about achieving some of this and some of the other as well. So that is going to be our sticking point, I think, is we're going to have to take small steps. But yes, we've hardly looked at it, because we only came across all this a few months ago, so very, very new to it. But so we're just open to any ideas, and that which you know, we can latch on to. It does bring us very close to the local churches in the community. So we've actually we're having a bigger meeting with them as well. So that's a good point as well. And then share ideas and maybe help each other. Whereas they've got more land than we've got more probably inside space, which are single rooms and that, so we can probably interact with each other to put on events or things that we can, ideas and that. And we've been talking about also rewilding a corner we've got at the edge of the building in the car park, and we're going to start digging around that to make that to attract more wildlife. So
right,
very, 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 very early days for us, I have to say.
Well, it sounds like you're really sounds like you've really got the bit between your teeth.
Is it building then?
Sorry.
If you're talking about, if just because you're talking about insulation and double glazing, is it a fairly modern building then? I didn't catch which church you were from.
It's probably about 50, just over 50 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem. Yeah, Ed's involved. So
Right.
Pottery. Right. I'm going to have to close these rooms because it's now 7:47, and if we're going to have any time to discuss together, it would be good to do that now. So thank you all very much for your contributions, and I'm hoping by just hitting the close the rooms button, we'll all magically go back again. See you the other side. Hooray, everybody's come back. That's a relief. Okay, great. Now I don't know who was in which group, but and I won't start with our group, so you're just going to have to help us out here. Who was in the room with Polly?
I had Catherine and Fiona with me. They must be on my other screen. So we had a lovely chat. They're both in Silver churches, Silver Eco Church. So that's really encouraging. Do either of you want to say a little bit, or?
No, I'll leave it to you.
I promise I didn't do all the talking. It was really lovely to hear from them about some of the both very different settings, but both spoke about the things that are going well where they're collaborating. So for in Fiona's church, she talked about how they had hosted an interfaith gathering during the time of the mass lobby. So they had 70 different people, different faiths coming together. And so that was really interesting to hear about. And Catherine was sharing about the collaboration and the work with friends of the churchyard, who are doing a lot about the recording species and looking at the biodiversity of the churchyard. And it was really interesting to think, well, that's right, we can't do it all alone, and lovely to hear about their examples. Yeah, so that was great. Did you want to hear a bit about the challenges, or we just touched on that?
I think I'm dealing with this. I think we need to hear the challenges. Yeah.
So for one, it was about having the sort of the leadership, or the vicar, who was quite a key person in how engaged they are in being able to take the church forward. So that was a pivotal person to be on side and have their heart for the environment. And for Fiona, it was interesting hearing about their urban setting church and some of the challenges of working with the council, who actually manage their land and seeking to have influence over the management of the land for biodiversity. And then you have all these plans, and then the council come along and mow the grass when you've actually intended not for it to happen. So that kind of challenge of seeking influence when it's a little bit out of your control, but it's very important to the church to make progress in that area. So that was an interesting one.
Great, thank you, Polly. So who's in the other group? Would anyone like to feedback in the other group, not Barbara's group?
I think there was just Sarah and myself in our group.
a very special group.
Elite, yes.
elite. Martin, Sarah, would you like to give some examples?
Although we're not physically, geographically close, I think we have similar problems. Sarah, jump in if I'm misrepresenting what you were saying. But I think we both felt we were a little bit stuck. Mm-hmm. So certainly at the church I'm connected with, we feel we've had a long connection with the Wildlife Trust, and have a very diverse rural churchyard, but struggle with the contradiction is that almost everybody drives. Mm-hmm. And then there is historically a disconnect between the church and the village, which is very sad, but is the reality. And I think Sarah has a similar situation where she is. So the I suppose the physical looking after of the environment is, I feel is very strong, and Sarah's church has had created a prayer pathway in their churchyard. But yeah, I feel that we're stuck. This isn't a criticism of our vicar, but I don't think climate change is at the forefront of her mind. And we obviously have a rolling program of retired clergy, so there isn't really a, for want of a better word, religious element to what we do. It's all kind of practical and outside. It's only a 200-year-old building, not an 800-year-old building, but it's very difficult to change. We can't do solar panels. We can't go down that route at all. So yeah, it's slightly feeling of being stuck. Sorry, Sarah, if I've missed anything out.
No, I think that's very representative of very similar churches, even though in different settings.
Thank you. And interesting being a vicar, that the vicar seems to be a key, because I think we'll find that coming out on in Barbara. Are you going to give our feedback, Barbara? I'm just
No, you go for it. I've done enough talking.
Well, I can let someone else do that. I mean, I think one of the idea of the vicar being on side, you need to have a collaborative working relationship between the two in order to have a functioning and flourishing eco church project. I think that's one of the aspects. Anyone else want to give another aspect from our group? So Hannah,
I think one of the really great things we heard from Jan was about getting together different local churches, so there being a really great opportunity for kind of collaboration between different churches, and I thought that was quite kind of inspiring from there. I'd certainly be interested to hear from Polly, from sort of my own experience, when you talk about the sort of sustainability of it and it really being woven in so that it's not dependent on specific people. That's definitely a challenge we faced, and I'd just be interested to know whether you have any tips on kind of how to do that, if you know, how to make sure that happens, or what you look for in a church, in sort of seeing that that's really structured in and not just dependent on a couple of particular people.
Is something? Could I just say something?
Susanna.
I feel that we've done it with safeguarding on the whole. Everybody has now taken on board the fact that it has to be there on every PCC agenda, that it really needs to be in preaching and praying, that it needs to be on every website and every church notice board, that it really needs to be embedded and that everybody owns it. And somehow we've got to get to the same sort of level of embedment, if there is such a word, with climate and biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse. And it's, I mean, I guess the timescale has been pretty similar, hasn't it? That this has really come to the fore, that they've both really become hugely pressing issues at about the same sort of time. So it can be done, is what I'm saying. We have done it with safeguarding, and clergy and lay people. Okay, there's a little bit of pushing at the edges in some places, but largely people have taken it on board.
It's
I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, Susanna, I'd echo that. I mean, it's absolutely dominated deanery synods, it's dominated PCCs, it's safeguarding has, certainly since the resignation of the Archbishop. And in some senses, certainly in my experience, the eco-church conversation has then sort of fallen to be very much the secondary consideration, if not just got on the agenda. I mean, it would be very interesting to know probably some really good examples of embedment. That was a word that really it struck me when you said that, and working as and building your team. Any good examples you might be able to share?
So I think a couple of things that can help that, and what Hannah's just said about that kind of keeping it keeping it there. And I mentioned the word ownership. I think having that ownership as leadership, as a PCC, is really important. And that might be a single sentence that is agreed, or it might be a slightly more complex paragraph. This is what we all adhere to. And those might be inspired from the marks of mission. And quite often people refer to the 5 marks of mission, talk about the 5th one being about the environment. Well, it's not only the 5th one. It's talking about loving your neighbour and about justice and about caring for one another. Those are just as much an integral part of caring for creation, because a lot of what we're doing is responding to the climate crisis, but we're doing that because of humanity is being affected. So that will be the poorest people already being massively affected, and people within your own communities. You know, you talk about the impacts of climate change. So tying it into what is there already is a really good way of doing that. I am aware that in the updated survey, we make quite a lot of reference to documentation. I'd say the one document to really try to start getting to grips with is an environmental policy. It doesn't have to be super lengthy. We've got examples of a simple one and a more complex one. But the reason for having a policy and then an action plan is you have to revisit that. And don't leave it 5 years. Just like you would safeguarding, have it on the agenda at, if not every PCC or every meeting, it might be every year. It is on the agenda. And therefore it has to be reviewed. It's holding each other to account. And that's really what a lot of this, I think the analogy with safeguarding is really valuable, because it's just not a shall we do it, shan't we? It is a given. We have to do it. And, you know, we're sitting here probably feeling the same about the environment and climate. So I think that can be a useful tool for a church. And we've got, I mean, there are many examples of churches with their policies, or we've got ones that you can start to take and craft those to be for your setting. So those would be my 2 top tips, really.
Polly, thank you so much. We have less than a minute left on our hour, so you leave us with something. More questions come to the mind, but we always promised these would be an hour. So thank you very much indeed. I think irrespective of technical issues, it worked. We were there on the map. We were engaged, so we're extremely grateful. Thank you all for joining in. Barbara, announcement of the next. Do we have a date for the next one?
It's in November with the dates to be defined. It's probably the 3rd week of November. We're just waiting to find out when both Ed and Hannah and you and I can all make it.
And if you have questions about UK Church, please do email Barbara or myself, and the environmental working group will have a look and see if we can return it. And there are all these wonderful EK chaplains such as Richard, who also are a great resource to help deaneries and come and talk and inspire people on their journey, embed it on their journey. So the Lord be with you all,
and also
with you.
May you have a blessed evening, and it's good night from all of us, and a huge thank you to Polly.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye.
God bless.